Must have known there was a bunch of millennials at this table. All right, the Pentagon has just released a new batch of mysterious UAP files. Back in 2023, eyewitnesses near a classified security site described seeing a massive mother orb launching smaller orbs. And this new video from July 2025 shows two bright objects streaking through the sky, while another video shows an encounter from October 2024. The files also detail strange incidents in the western U.S. over 2 days in October 2023. And it's not just here. In Zimbabwe, the CIA investigated multiple mysterious instances. I'm all in on this. Joining us now for tonight's big close-up is UAP whistleblower and former Air Force intelligence officer David Grusch. David, I'm bought into this. I watched The Age of Disclosure. I can't wait to watch Disclosure Day on Monday. I'm going to go see it by myself. I'm that into it, okay? I know that you are a whistleblower on this, and you're very passionate about this, and for good reason. My question is, these files that are being dropped, how confident are you that this administration is going to give us all the information, maybe that you're privy to or that you suspect? Do you think we're going to get the real answers on the UAP, UFO, alien activity?
Yeah, thanks, Tommy. I believe the presser we did earlier this week was helping drive that impetus so the administration does release those files. I know Mr. Stephen Miller is very serious about getting to the bottom of this for the president, and certainly the president was briefed on a lot of these matters his first term as well. So certainly seeing good signs. Very interesting files that were released the other day through the third drop. But it's really up to the administration and the cabinet to release a lot of the information I was exposed to. You know, they have the keys to the car, so to speak.
You know, David, Lisa Booth here. A lot of times these sightings end up having ordinary explanations. Tell us about some that you've seen that defy the ordinary.
Yeah, certainly some of them are ordinary, and some of them end up being, you know, foreign programs and our own blue programs. I've seen a lot of different interesting anomalous videos where we had, you know, orbs cooler than background temperature moving at 400 knots, you know, things like that. Certainly, like I said in my presser on Tuesday, I did get access to crash retrieval photos and everything, so I've seen the recovered vehicles and everything. So I would say that's probably the most stupendous thing, earth-shattering thing that, you know, changed my worldview when I got access to some of that years ago. And I do hope the administration, and I think they will, release that information in a further drop.
David, I gotta just jump in real quick there and give you a chance to talk about these crash site vehicles, because you got the hair on my wrist standing up. Just real quickly, I don't want to filibuster Joey here, but I'm very into this.
You got it.
Tell me about these crash sites that you've seen personally.
Yeah, a lot of them looked like what we saw. Some of the reporting dropped on Friday. There was a 1948 memo from the Chief of Naval Operations that discussed the flying disc pandemic that they were having, and they were enlisting help of the Air Force Intelligence Service. A lot of it was lenticular discs. Some was crescent moon shaped. I call it the flattened sunfish. There's a bunch of different morphologies that the U.S. government has recovered, from eggs to discs to you know, crescent moon, boomerang type vehicles, and I got a small smattering sample of that of ones that have you know, landed or crashed on the surface of the Earth.
David, I hate to bring us back down the ground here, but this is another kind of a tangent to this issue that I think that Americans maybe aren't as surprised by. But I want to ask you about recent allegations you've made accusing intel agencies of hiding billions of dollars in secret government spending from Congress. I mean, we know about Air America. You know, CIA has done stuff like that, even Iran-Contra. So we've seen this happen before. It's not, you know, it's not aliens. It's what our government does. But tell us what you know about that.
Yeah, certainly. Earlier in my career, I was a counter-threat finance analyst. I actually worked in a special cell looking at arms trafficking and terrorist funding. So I have that background in counter-finance. And what I found was there were haircuts taken to classified black programs to fund this. There was also self-funding cutout companies, if you're familiar, and you mentioned Iran-Contra, and they had cutout companies self-funding some of the arms purchases for the Contras, but also criminal enterprises, unfortunately, is kind of the third way I saw laundering money. And I actually bumped into a very serious criminal enterprise, and all that information was actually reported to Department of Justice, and it led to some federal investigations and things I can't mention now, but the DOJ is actually handling that now because I bumped into a government-run criminal enterprise that was siphoning money for this topic as well to pay for kind of the crash retrieval operations off books.
You know, David, I feel like to some of the skeptics out there, you know, you just talked about an example dating back to the 1940s. Yeah. There's been evidence or allegations for decades. And the cynics or the skeptics might say, if there's truly some big conspiracy here to hide all this from us, that's now involving so many people to keep these secrets and keep the conspiracy going. Is that really plausible or realistic? How do you address that question that people might ask?
Yeah, you know, at any given time, there's probably several thousand people briefed. And then remember, it's an onion model. So people at the top, you're looking at less than 200 that really know a lot of this information. As somebody who was originally ultra cleared, I was cleared to the entire black budget of the Department of Defense at one point. We do keep a lot of secrets as America, and there are multi-decade thousands of people briefed to certain sensitive activities we do around the world, and it's never leaked. And conversely, actually, this subject at some level has been leaking since almost its inception, because you had qualified observers seeing this phenomena, and then you did have information about crash retrievals and other things like, you know, historical events that have been documented, like Virginia and Brazil in '96. Which the Brazilian defense minister recently in a statement confirmed that event actually happens. And if you watch an episode of American Alchemy with Jesse Michaels, you can actually watch that interview. So the government is very good at keeping secrets, but at the same time, this subject actually has been leaking at some level as well. But, you know, we have tactics, techniques, and procedures to keep the lid on a lot of sensitive things, believe it or not.
David, just real quickly, are you fearing for your life at all, or blowback? I know that you've been very outspoken, but after watching a lot of documentaries on this, there are a lot of whistleblowers that speak of the things that you're speaking of. Is there a price that you pay for that?
Yeah, there was a severe price. And certainly my wife and I witnessed a lot of things in our personal life to send me a message when I was, you know, at NGA and still an intelligence officer. The administrative terrorism was immense. And like I mentioned in my presser, even the Air Force A2 or the Intelligence Directorate, you know, tried to get an Espionage Act unauthorized disclosure investigation on me when I went public in 2023 and testified in front of the House Oversight Committee. And certainly recently, my good Air Force friend, Matthew, callsign Quake Sullivan, did pass away mysteriously before he was willing to come to the Hill to testify about his knowledge of these activities. And Quake was a Bronze Star recipient and an Air Force officer, intel officer friend of mine that I served with. And, you know, he was one of my, you know, sources in my investigation. And, he passed away mysteriously. And that is an ongoing FBI matter. So I won't characterize it. And I'm open to, you know, different conclusions of what happened. But just, you know, to your point, there's been a lot of anomalous things that have happened to people. I've had anomalous health incidents happen to people that were helping me in my investigation, you know, Havana syndrome, if you will. And now that the government is finally admitting that that issue is real, that issue sort of parallels this issue. They deny until all of a sudden, just kidding, we know it's real. So I've been at fear for my life in the past.
Well, David, I really appreciate it. Like I said, I am totally bought into this, and I appreciate you coming forward and spending the time with us tonight. You're going to kick off a very intriguing discussion, so I hope you will stay on the line and watch. Thank you so much.
Thanks, David.
No, sounds good. Yeah, thank you for having me on.
And thank you for your service.
Yes. All right, Lisa, he dropped some information there at the tail end of that. I'm very happy asking that question that I thought was very intriguing. What do you make of all of this? You know, Guy might be maybe the more the skeptic at the table, and I understand the skepticism because we've talked about aliens, and people think of aliens, they think of like a little green man with giant eyes. Maybe that's not what we're dealing with here, but maybe there's some kind of a non-human life form. Maybe it's in space, maybe it's under the ocean. It feels like there's a lot of smoke.
Or maybe it's just very classified military technology that the public's not aware of, and perhaps that's why there's such an aggressive effort to go after some of these whistleblowers. I don't know. I mean, a lot of times there ends up being ordinary explanations for some of this stuff. I really don't know what to believe. I feel like life on Earth is complicated enough that, like, I don't want to I don't want to think about aliens as well in all of this. So it's not an issue that piques my interest as much. But I appreciate disclosure, and I think transparency is a healthy thing. And if he's being personally attacked, maybe there's something to that.
It's not classified military technology. There's too much money to be made in that industry, and we fought too many wars since the 1940s for it to. I mean, why would you purposefully lose so much in war, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, if you had technology that could be helpful? So I don't think that's it. Could it be government agencies? Of course. What I believe, I think the most compelling argument is when you talk about the lengths people will go to keep something secret, as if there's criminality involved. So when he starts talking about the criminal elements of how they're funneling money, I think that's a bigger secret to keep than even the existence of aliens. So it's not the existence, but the programs to keep it under wraps that maybe, to me, has the most teeth. That kind of make me perk up and listen. My thought has always been, do we look at this at a very American point of view of like, oh, we're keeping a secret? Like if aliens visited, they wouldn't visit any number of other countries that couldn't keep a secret as well. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where my skepticism grows from, but I'm certainly open to the idea that aliens exist and or have visited this planet.
Are you moved at all by the conversation from David?
Moved is... I'm not sure I would use that term. I'm kind of retweeting in my mind most of what Lisa said. I also feel like we're in a society now where phones are everywhere.
Yeah.
The idea that there hasn't been one of these things that's crashed and someone just like videoed it and put it on Twitter and with a very clear shot of it, that hasn't happened yet. That's maybe one level of skepticism. I'm not throwing the whole thing out as totally impossible. I guess I'm just not as intrigued, certainly, as you are, Tommy. But one day you might have a giant "I told you so" waiting for me,
Although
which is fine.
If there were aliens, we come in peace. Leave us alone.
Well, they're coming
nice.
Here in peace.
Yeah, but we are peaceful, and we want them to be peaceful to us.
Well, not if the Knicks win or lose.
Tommy, don't mess up my safety message. I'm trying to like
Self-preservation.
Yeah.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.